And now, for your listening pleasure, here's Polizzi and Rose, covering the week of media, marketing, and digital content news. This Old Marketing. Take it away, boys.
Hello, my friends. This is Robert Rose, and welcome to episode number 306 of This Old Marketing, recorded on Thursday, January 13th, 2022. And with me, as always, my friend, my colleague, and, well, a guy who's never been called a moron by Dr. Fauci, Mr. Joe Polizzi. How are you, my friend?
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
I know. Well, I guess people who listened to our show last week, maybe they think that we recorded that in 2022, but we did not.
We're sneaky that way.
We were sneaky. Yeah. We actually, I like this because we recorded basically 3 episodes in one day. I was exhausted, by the way, after that.
It was incredibly exhausting. I mean, talking to you for an hour is exhausting.
My God,
for 3 hours, it was like actually, I was ready to give it up.
3 hours with Mr. Rose. It's like, a bad red wine. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. It's more like a bad tequila.
Bad red wine. Yeah. Yeah, both of them will give you a headache if you let it.
No,
yeah.
Explain. So, as you know, I don't pay attention to the news much anymore, at least the general news. So what's with the moron comment?
Oh, I don't know if you've seen the general news, but yesterday or the day before, Dr. Fauci was yet again up on Capitol Hill doing his thing. And he and Rand Paul got into it, and then he and another senator, and I'm not remembering the name off the top of my head and don't have it in front of me, but basically the senator was like, "Hey, will you promise to disclose all of your financial investments, basically to this body?" And Fauci's looking at him like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, I've disclosed my financial disclosures for 35 years. I do it every single year. What are you talking about?" And the senator goes on and is like, "Well, if you won't do it, basically we can go find it, but you can tell us where to find it." And he's like, "I don't know what you're talking about. All you have to do is ask for it because I disclose it every year as part of my employment." And the senator's like, "Oh, I guess you really don't want to," it's like he's just not.
Are you kidding me?
No, it's this great exchange. And then Fauci finally goes, off on a hot mic, which, has basically, because the chairwoman comes in and says, "Hey, we're going to move on to another senator now for questioning." And you can hear Fauci in the background on the hot mic go, "What a moron." It was just great. It was just really, really good.
Well, obviously looking for a soundbite.
Yeah. Oh, he has, Fauci has no more F's to give. I mean, it's pretty good. He's just done. He's just done, with this whole thing.
I think everyone is done. Like you can feel, I mean, I'm not going to speak for the rest of the world, but everyone in the United States that I talk to, they're just it's exhaustion. They're just everything. Yeah. I'm done with it. I'm done. I can't take it anymore. I want to have a new sense of purpose in living, and I don't want to live under this cloud that we've been living under. And I would imagine Fauci feels that more than anyone in the world.
Oh my gosh. I mean, and part of it is that he's getting, he gets threats and stuff like that. And they caught some guy traveling across the country with an AR-15 who was going to, quote unquote, take him out. And it's like, that stuff's got to get to you after a while. You're just like, the reason that those people are so angry with me is because these people, that he's answering to up on Capitol Hill keep saying, that he's, a maniac. And it's like, and that has nothing to do with, whatever side of that particular equation you fall on. Calling for some guy to get, fired or go do him in or, whatever it is just like, that's a whole other level of like just tension and stupidity.
It's interesting. On our Discord group, there was some conversation about the Creator Economy Expo in May, and that's 100% vaccinated event. Yeah. We made that decision to run the safest possible event, all that stuff, right? And I just had 2 people started to get into a conversation about it, and it got nasty quick. like 2 adults that they've been on our Discord channel for a long, and then all of a sudden name calling starts. I'm just like, jeez. It's like, fine. If you do, whatever. If you don't come. If you do, whatever, it's fine. I'm not going to pick apart anybody's beliefs or why they do whatever they do, but people resort really quickly to hateful messaging and make it personal.
Yeah,
right off the bat.
That's the thing. It's honestly, and there's been a few. I was over the holidays. I was actually seeing more of this, which is the lost art of actually having a discussion. It used to be back in the day we could actually have a discussion like this and have it even get heated, but you would be talking about the issues, not these ad hominem attacks that seem to be so prevalent today. You just can't you can't have these kinds of discussions without it getting personal, really, about, who's, I don't know, I get off on a rant here, but it's hard to have those discussions these days. It really is.
I don't know. Have you heard of that group called Storycorps? Have you heard of this before?
Yes, I have.
So you've heard of Storycorps.
Yes.
Well, the guy that ran Storycorps, he was on 60 Minutes last week. He created a new organization. I think it's called One Step More, or One More Step, or something like that. And what they do is they get 2 people from different political ideologies.
Oh, I heard about this.
And they get them into a room with each other. It's facilitated, and you get them into a room with each other, and they talk about anything other than politics. Talk about their families, and basically they come out of it friends, even though one's super liberals, one's super conservative. And what the guy talks about is that you can't hate somebody who you connect with on another level outside of politics.
That's right.
It's impossible to hate them, and you can't. Then you don't get personal with politics then. And I just loved it. They showed some of the examples, and I'm like, well, if we could do that with the entire world, and that's what the guy wants to do. But I love the mission behind it. It's like he basically said, I don't know if this is what's going to solve all the hate and the negative jargon in our country, but we got to do something. So this is what I'm doing. So I'm like, okay, I like that.
It's it's much needed for sure. Absolutely much needed, because what it's done is that it has sort of put a stifle, a big pillow over the voices of people who just quite frankly don't want to deal. You know what I mean? It's like, if you can't have a conversation, it's well known, that you can't literally have a conversation on Facebook without it devolving into, there's even some meme going around like, it's going to be 4 comments before it gets to Hitler. At some point, Hitler's going to enter the conversation. It's like, okay, that's the tipping point, right? And so you can't have these conversations online anymore. And so what so many people have done is just like disengaged. And so you have this really high level of disengagement because you just don't feel, I count myself in that, right? In so many ways, I've disengaged with politics and, national issues in any sort of, public forum, because I quite frankly just don't have the stomach for it. I just don't have admittedly don't have the stomach for it.
No, you and I both. You remember... you and I were on the road while a lot of this stuff was going on politically, and I took it very personally. I was wrecked.
Yeah.
And I was following the whole thing, and I was in. And then it was doing so much damage to my mental facilities. I just couldn't take it anymore. Now I don't watch any, and you know this, I don't watch any news. I'm hardly ever on Facebook. I never look at anything like that. I read stories, I read marketing, but when it comes to anything in politics, I don't, because I have some very close people to me that have different political ideologies, and they will come up to me and say, "Did you see this? Did you see this? Did you see so-and-so said this?" And I can honestly say, "No, I didn't. I'm sorry, I'm not paying attention to that." And then that's it. I don't have to get involved in that conversation because I don't want to have those conversations with people I love. I just don't.
Yeah.
I just want to love them for whatever they believe.
I feel you.
I don't have to believe the same things that they do.
No, exactly.
And I don't have to get into a heated
and it's your
discussion.
choice whether you're going to engage with them on that. You know
And
what I mean? That's the real key.
And I have completely shut down when it comes to that. I am
Yeah.
done. I talk with my kids all the time about it now, who are way more into it. And I'm like, I'm sorry, you'll have to take this on without me. I'm not gonna travel that road anymore. So
Yeah,
we'll see.
That's exactly right. Yeah, life's too short.
It absolutely is. Now, but before we get started,
Yeah.
I haven't talked to you. There's a lot of really, really good content out there, movies. What is there one that you watched over the last 3 weeks that is like, this was the greatest thing ever? Is there something you're watching right now?
Okay, so I'm going to have another. This is the show of unpopular opinions. I'm going to say two. One that I thought was really bad. That this is the unpopular opinion, and one that I really liked, but I don't think it's the best thing ever. So,
okay,
the best thing ever was or at least good, was the Boba Fett series, the new Boba Fett series, which I'm down for anyway. But you like
it so far. I've watched the first two episodes. It's
really geeky.
Yeah,
this is what I would say is that the fan service that it does, the sort of truly subtle Easter eggs are. There's so many. So if you weren't a fan of the comics, this is all going to be very new to you. But if you were a fan of the comics and the movies and everything related to Star Wars, it's rich. There's a lot there that is for you. So there's that. I watched the movie, that Don't Look Up movie.
Yes.
I'm maybe the only person on the planet who thought it was complete crap. I thought it was just awful. I just thought it was bad.
You're not the only person in the world. I have seen a lot of people that you and I know and are friends with that have just loved it and raved about it. It was cringy. I did watch the whole thing. It was very difficult for me to get through that movie.
Yeah, it was me too. I didn't think it was fun. I didn't think it was funny. I didn't think it was particularly poignant. I didn't think it was particularly pointed. I thought it was ham-fisted at best. And I just thought, the whole thing, trying to make it funny by putting Jonah Hill in there with his role and all that stuff. Now, I will say this: the last 12 minutes or the last 15 minutes, I thought were the best of the.
Well, yeah, because that was the human. Those are the human moments where.
Right. That's right.
I totally agree with that. Not that it is
no Doctor Strangelove, right? It is, and that's what it wants to be, right? It wants to be sort of a very cynical, very sort of satirical look at climate change and the way that we are reacting to it. And I just thought it was like it was. I don't know. I did not care for it at all.
I totally got the. I didn't think it was as much climate change as what's going on. Well, I guess, yes, climate change, or I related it a lot to what's going on with the vaccine as well.
Yeah, true, as well. It's really everything.
Yeah, it's everything. It's like people that believe in science and people that don't believe in science, kind of a thing, right?
So. I mean, the whole thing at the end when they're, and I'm not spoiling anything, folks, because it's the title of the movie, where it gets to the point where they say basically you can literally see the comet, the asteroid or the comet that's coming to hit the Earth, and they go, all you need to do is look up and actually just look. You can see it coming, and basically then the people who are on the other side of that political issue say basically, oh, they want you to look up because you're afraid, right? They want you to be sheep and look up. It's like, don't look up. It's like, oh God, it's just. I mean, I just went, oh, okay, I see what you're doing there. Right, it's
a lot of amazing actors in that movie, though.
Oh, great! I mean, fantastic actors. I mean, the performances were fine.
Yeah, performances were great.
I mean, Meryl Streep is fun. Jonah Hill is Jonah Hill. DiCaprio is DiCaprio. I mean, I mean, everybody's in it. I mean, there's so many people in it. It was, but I just was like, meh.
Yeah, I'm with you on it. So I loved the new Spider-Man movie.
Oh, I haven't seen it. I haven't gone.
Oh,
we're
you're
not going to a
kidding me!
movie
Oh
theater
my
yet.
god!
No,
Now my kids thought it was the greatest movie that's ever been made.
Wow.
So I did
high
not.
praise.
It was not. It's not my favorite Marvel movie of all time, but it's definitely top 5.
Wow. Okay.
So
I've heard
I
the
think
same
you'll
thing.
enjoy it. A lot of fan service. Oh
Yeah,
my goodness!
all right.
If you're a Spider-Man
Yeah.
fan, you're just gonna absolutely eat this up. So I would recommend it. And then of course,
Yeah.
a lot of people did not like this, and you and I talked about this last time. But I did like the new Matrix reboot a lot.
I thought it was fine. I thought it was fine. I get it, right? Yeah, to me it felt a little bit like Lana was trying to basically rewrite the, instead of the 1, there's the 2.
Yes.
It's like, it felt a little bit like trying to rewrite the ending of the last Matrix movie. And sort of like, ooh, I've got a new idea about how we should have ended that whole trilogy. Let's make another movie to sort of rewrite the ending. And that's what it felt like to me, but I liked it fine. I liked it fine.
Here's why I liked the continuation of it, and because the 1 was never the 1, it was always the 2 of them. Because he was dead in the first one until Trinity said, "Get up." And kissed him. And brought him back to life. It was always those 2, and I think we always looked at the 1 as being Neo, but the 1 were the 2 of them combined. That's why I took. And then this sort of brings this to fulfillment full circle.
Yes.
In this movie. But I like Neil Patrick Harris's performance in it a lot.
Oh yeah, he's great. He's always great.
Because he was Neil Patrick Harris.
It's fun. It's look, it's an hour and a half of fun.
Yes. It was lots of fun. So So do we have stories?
Well, I guess we should get up
stories this week.
We do. So on this week's show, we're going to talk a little bit about a few things. We're going to talk about how the New York Times and subscription models have really opened up 2022 with a bang, and boy, have they ever. And we're going to talk a little bit about how LinkedIn, lots on LinkedIn, they're kind of going all in on journalism and being a Clubhouse competitor. Clubhouse being that big failed thing.
Oh, stop it.
That we'll talk about.
Jeez. And, do you wake up in the morning and you just slam Clubhouse?
I do.
Do you talk to your wife and you just say, that Clubhouse?
Yeah, exactly. That's my life. You've just, and I do it in that tone of voice too. I go, rah, 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 rah. It's like a dinosaur. Rawr. Oh God, I've been watching too much TikTok.
I hate
too much
Clubhouse.
TikTok. Yeah. We'll also talk about the tale of 2 creator economy entrepreneurs, one who sells products by the assload, and the other is Logan Paul. So we'll dissect that a little bit. And of course, we'll have our rants and raves sections where I'll bring back an article from 1996 that I'm just going to rave about. And Joe's going to rant and rave a little bit about the Great Resignation. And if we have time at the end there, talk a little bit about the name, image, likeness stuff from the college sporting arenas.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Very good.
All right. Well, let's jump right in.
Let's do this.
Because it's the new year and it's a new show. And let's go. We'll open up here with New York Times. And the New York Times is opening up the year with a big bang here. We're going to pair 2 stories together here. The first coming from CNBC, which big news, actually, in the world of acquisitions. The New York Times is going to buy the sporting publication The Athletic for $550 million, 550 schmackaroos. Basically, the article opens up by saying the New York Times has struck a deal to acquire sports news subscription site The Athletic. The deal is valued around $550 million. It is expected to close within the first quarter of 2022. And the market didn't love it because shares of the Times were actually down slightly in after-hours trading. It'll be an interesting thing, and I'm hearing 2 things about this. One is that it's a great deal. The other is like, I'm not sure about this so much. The New York Times company CEO, Meredith Kopit Levien, told investors on a call following the news that they would initially offer The Athletic as a separate subscription and ultimately offer it as part of a broader Times bundle. She said in a statement in the release that the vertical would give subscribers more extensive coverage of sports teams and leagues, while the Times offers sports coverage for general interest audience. We're going to pair this, and then I would love to get your take on this acquisition, Mr. Polizzi, with a story from The Information, which references the whole idea of the New York Times acquisition of The Athletic, but basically has started to talk a little bit about how the subscription model is really what drives a good media valuation. In other words, they say media valuations are not there unless the subscription model is in play. Basically, it says even with advertising sales on the rise and digital media firms seeking other revenue streams like online commerce and film and TV and production and stuff like that, The Information found that valuations in many non-subscription focused companies in particular have been sinking, while those with subscriptions have been rising. So, taking those two things together, Mr. Polizzi, what say you about what's going on in the world of media as we jump into 2022?
I would like to break open that valuation conversation a little bit, because I do have some comments to what The Information posted. But I ran some numbers here. I want to get your take on this. So, the sale of The Athletic to the New York Times was $550 million. The Athletic has, according to the article from CNBC, has 1.2 million subscribers, which is, by the way,
$500 a subscriber.
$500, $458 a subscriber.
Yep.
That's a lot of that is a lot for just a subscription business. So
that's right.
I'm trying to put two and two together. Makes sense, right? New York Times is really focused on what I would call luxury subscriptions. The Athletic is a luxury subscription. And New York Times is as well. So if they feel they can, so it looks like maybe that's the next step for New York Times. They're going to start packaging these together, buying more of these. You can get it all in the bundle, like you do with ESPN Plus or Hulu Plus packages that they have now, or you can get it individually. Whatever, that's fine. But I think that where I see the opportunity, if you're going to build up, this is a hefty valuation for the subscription company. Either they feel that they can really significantly drive more subscriptions at a higher rate, or they feel they can drive more revenues from The Athletic than just paid subscriptions. That's where I think the opportunity is.
Bing, 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 bing,
exactly,
bing.
right?
That's it.
And that's where I think a lot of these articles lose, because the New York Times, yes, did they evolve into a paid subscription company? Sure, I guess you could say that with their digital subscriptions. But you have to remember, New York Times is a really well-diversified media company. They have events, they have advertising and sponsorship, they have premium content, they have affiliate deals. Their Wirecutter thing, that's a full affiliate site.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people forget, and they say, "Oh, New York Times is paid subs." So if The Athletic is just, for the most part, paid subs, which is fine, if you take the New York Times business model, overlay it, and say we are going to do the same thing with The Athletic, which is a lot, by the way. You're making a lot of assumptions there. But if you do that, then this is a really good deal for both sides.
Yep.
But the question is, will they do it?
Yeah, that's exactly. You basically pulled the words right out of my head.
We were thinking the same.
So, hashtag somebody did the math.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, and this is the lesson, by the way, for us as marketers, as content creators, as content marketers, as basically communicators that are getting into this business. Look, what the New York Times did was they looked at their subscriber base and they did the math and they went the overlap. And I'm sure somebody with a very large Excel spreadsheet looked at the Athletic subscribers and said, there's not very many of these that are also New York Times subscribers. And so there's a lot of net new people that we're getting into our little sphere of influence. And if you just look at it from monetizing them against how much they're paying for The Athletic, doesn't work. I mean, The Athletic has been losing $50 million every single year. And so from that business model, it's not very valuable. But if you make the bet, and this New York Times has clearly made this bet, that you can monetize those audience members, those net new audience members, to what will be the sphere of influence of the New York Times, to new products, new events, new subscriptions, new newsletters, all the things that they'll have access to now that they can reach that audience Well, now that math starts to work a lot better. And somewhere along the lines, they discovered that it's worth more than $550 or $458 or whatever the number is per subscriber, because they feel like they can monetize those audiences at a greater rate.
That's right.
And that's the math that we need to do as marketers, right? When you start looking at your email marketing database, when you start looking at your subscribers to your blog, it's not just how many of them will buy your classic product marketing and services. It is how many you can monetize against a multitude of different revenue and or savings streams. This is what we talk about in the book, right?
Yep.
That's what was so fascinating to me about this, is that when you look at it on paper, you go, that seems like an overreach. But if you start to really break it down and start really valuing the access to that audience, they could pull just to your point, they could pull a BuzzFeed here and start putting, classic fan-based events to, football teams, to baseball teams, to the NBA, to all those people that those people are huge fans of, and start building events around that. Well, now those are people who would much more likely pay for something like that than your general New York Times subscriber, and therefore you can monetize it. So I think it's a fabulous deal, and I think New York Times was brilliant for doing it.
No, I think so you're absolutely dead on with marketers. The same goes for content creators. When you have your first revenue thing, whatever that is, right? That could be paid subscriptions, that could be advertising, sponsorship, it could be an affiliate deal, whatever. I think a lot of creators think, oh, that's the way that I create revenue.
That's it, right?
No,
that's all they got.
That's your first way to create revenue. Because you and I, because we talk about this in Killing Marketing, I talk about it in Content Inc. It's the best content creators, the best content marketers have 5, 6, 7, 8 different ways they drive revenue from their audience. And so I'm right now, because I was typing in, I was looking at the Athletic site. As far as I can tell, the only thing that they do to drive revenue is a subscription, which I'll just throw this out here. When we were in the end of 2019 and the beginning of 2020, the media companies that really struggled were who? The ones that only had event revenue.
Yep.
The diversified media companies had great years in 20 and 21.
Right. That's right.
So you have to remember, you cannot put all your eggs in one revenue basket. And kudos to the New York Times. Kudos to the New York Times for looking at this and saying, wow, this is such an untapped resource here.
Yeah. And I would yes and that to say it's the monetization basket, right? Because for product and service marketers that are building an audience, the idea is when you make an acquisition like this, or you make a calculation like this on the audience value, you may look at it in the reverse way, right? You may say, hey, we're not monetizing this through revenue, but how many different monetizations through savings of marketing spend, through first-party data that you're getting, through different ways to create efficiencies in the marketing spend that you're making, multiple ways to create that through the acquisition of a sweet spot audience that's really valuable is the key there. Just look at it in the terms of, say, a HubSpot acquiring The Hustle, right? They didn't acquire The Hustle for the money that people were spending to subscribe to The Hustle. That was just basically a discount on how much they were actually going to have to spend if they keep that revenue model in case. They go, oh, great. We know we'll make X amount of dollars. That'll be a discount against our acquisition costs. The multiple that they spend on that comes from the idea of, hey, this is a group of people that we can sell stuff to. And it's our sweet spot audience. And so it's the idea that you're actually getting direct reach and the ability to give, those people messaging. That's the discount, right? So it means a discount on how much I would have to spend on advertising to that crew, how much I would have to spend on SEO to pull in those people into my sphere of influence, the discount, and by the way, the multiple on maybe they discovered that The Hustle audience is typically going to buy bigger software packages. All of those things calculate into your ROI. So yeah, good for the New York Times. Good. It's build an ecosystem, man. That's what it's all about.
And then on the other article by The Information, I mean, The best, obviously, if you are a subscription model, you get a premium because you have a direct customer connection that actually the customers pay you something directly for the content that has been in play for the last 20 plus years since digital subscriptions became a thing. Second in play were always media and events. I mean, those were the two, like if you were going to start a media company and you wanted to get the most money for the earnings that you were going to create, you'd say, I want a paid subscription company or I would want an event company. But again, you got to remember, let's say that you're an event company first or a paid subscription company first. If you have all these other different revenue components that lifts up the event side or lifts up the paid, first of all, they all work together. They don't work individually. They really do work together. And
of course,
they add to that valuation. So when we sold Content Marketing Institute, of course, Content Marketing World was the big part of it. That was our big event. We made the most money off of that event, but we had 40% of our revenue in other things. That I didn't get a different valuation on that revenue. I got the same valuation on all of it.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people forget that. And you can be focused, and you should be focused to a point. But when you're talking about marketers and looking at this valuation, you have to look at all the different ways you're changing behavior and all the different ways that you're driving revenue. Because if you don't do that and you're not actively looking for it, you will get shut down. Because if you just look at one, it's probably not going to be enough.
No, that's exactly right. And it's not going to look great, right? You're going to look at it and go, I don't see how that works, right? If you were to just look at the athletics business model, you go, I don't see how that works over time because your costs are growing way faster than your ability to, expand and or make a profit. And what, thankfully, I think the Athletic realized, let's be honest, the Athletic has been trying to position themselves for sale for some time. Yeah. And so what they've realized was, no. The investment here that we're making by hiring all these very expensive, talented journalists and sinking all this money into a great experience and sinking all this money that basically isn't going to be covered by our subscription costs, it's to build an asset called an audience that is truly the gold standard when it comes to an audience that some big media company wants, and they'll come in and buy us. That's it. Yeah. So that's the calculus.
It reminds me of I sat in a presentation by Red Bull. This was a couple of years ago. I'm not going to get the numbers right, but it was something like they said every week a Red Bull customer watches 30 to 45 minutes of their own videos. Yeah, and he's like, if you put that against and you put that against a number of like an advertising number or whatever, it's like you can't value it. It's almost priceless for that kind of engagement. So he's like, if we just look at the traditional valuation or the traditional metrics we've always used, I can't put a price on creating video. It's so valuable to us to have that kind of content experience. So just interesting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to our second story here, which is all about LinkedIn. LinkedIn making some news of late. We'll again pair two stories together here into this topic that we'll talk about here. The first news item that comes up from earlier this month is that LinkedIn is going to add Clubhouse-style audio events this month, meaning in January. LinkedIn has been working on a Clubhouse-style live audio room feature since at least March. That would be March of last year. It's now set out to roll this product out as part of a new events platform. The plan is to let organizers host virtual roundtables, fireside chats, and other kinds of discussion as they see fit. Hosts will also be able to moderate discussions while attendees will be able to speak with each other during events and afterward. Events will run on in-house tools that LinkedIn has built. At the outset, LinkedIn is hoping members of its thriving creator community, those who develop and share content on topics like career development, will host events. By the way, total side note here, for those of you content creators out there, and that includes content marketers at enterprise companies, if you haven't gone and changed your profile to add the content creator tag to your profile, do that. Go out and it's worth doing. There's a couple of different meta tags that you get for that and all those kinds of things, but it definitely identifies you as a content creator. So go do that to your LinkedIn profile. Then We'll pair that with another story, which I think is very much related to this, even though there's no distinctions or corollaries drawn here. From businessinsider.com, which is Dan Roth, who is the editor-in-chief of LinkedIn.
Dan's a good guy.
Is talking about how they are basically ramping up all of their new journalists. LinkedIn is aggressively growing its newsroom, it says, by poaching journalists from publications like Bloomberg, Wall Street Journal, and CBS News. The Microsoft-owned social platform for professionals has steadily built up an editorial operation of journalists who curate news and encourage people to post on LinkedIn over the last 10 years, but that team grew significantly in 2021 at the end, ballooning from 75 staffers to 95 staffers, and plans to grow by double-digit percentages this year, Dan Roth told Insider. So what say you, Mr. Pulizzi? This is a fascinating... To me, this says LinkedIn is going all in on business content and wants to become a business publication and be treated as a business publication with both of these ideas, both in audio, podcasting, and I totally have a take on that social audio thing. But what do you think about this?
Well, I think this is a long time coming. They've been working toward this for a while. Obviously, a lot of the initial stuff that Dan was overseeing were testing. They had a small group of 40. I mean, nothing wrong with that. I think they're moving to 95.
Yeah.
They're going to grow from there. And with this move, you're hedging your bets. I mean, if you look at LinkedIn and the huge audience they have, a lot of people go there for news. Where do they get their news right now? They get their news from people on LinkedIn, user-generated content. And we talked about this with Facebook years ago, where we thought that Facebook was going to start buying media companies because they couldn't rely on just user-generated content to keep that engagement going. Well, LinkedIn, I think, believes that thesis, and they're saying, well, we've got to go that direction, so they're going to build out this whole journalism function, and I think that's the right move. And honestly, for how big LinkedIn is and how much revenue they have as part of the Microsoft franchise, if they will, this is something they had to do, I believe. And they need to cover the multiple areas. And I would probably say this is not enough. I would see LinkedIn and Microsoft to actually start buying some of these niche media companies and fold them in to regular content. They could do it with licensed content, but at this point, I would start probably buying some of these brands. So that's that. I think that the other thing with the Clubhouse integration, if you will, you probably have a tough time saying Clubhouse. So I'm surprised you were able to get that out of your mouth.
I do not have a tough time saying it.
Social audio. I heard you. You almost choked on social audio. But anyways, if you go to Twitter and you get on Twitter and you see Twitter Spaces, Twitter Spaces is taking off.
It is indeed.
It is working really well. LinkedIn sees this. I mean, of course, they were both pushed out there by Clubhouse, and now LinkedIn and Twitter are going to take the lead on this. LinkedIn for business communication, Twitter, and LinkedIn's got to watch this because Twitter could eat their lunch in this regard for some of these business conversations that are happening.
No. LinkedIn. Look, I love
LinkedIn
the fact that
them.
this was a Twitter.
Yeah,
I'm not sure about that, but the. What I do think that LinkedIn has a absolutely advantage here is that people go to LinkedIn for longer form content. People don't go to Twitter for long form content. They just don't. The random long Twitter thread aside, people will engage. I mean, I don't know about you, but my inbox has been just dumped on. By the way, nobody needs another LinkedIn newsletter, folks. If you're thinking about a LinkedIn newsletter, you are too late. I have gotten hundreds of invites to LinkedIn newsletters over the last 2 weeks. It's crazy the amount of people who are launching LinkedIn newsletters. And that will sort itself out for sure. The same thing is going to happen here, I think. They have a distinct advantage with the audio piece of this because if you're a business, and especially a B2B manufacturing sort of very niche business, and you want to start a podcast, right now that feels really weird, right? Starting a podcast that's, maybe a couple of hundred people at most would ever subscribe to, because, you're talking about, generators for jet engines or, those kinds of things. Starting up a little podcast in a LinkedIn group for those, 200 people who might attend on a live weekly basis, fascinating, right? That's, so business podcasting. And again, I said this, I predicted this when they acquired SlideShare. I did it again when they acquired that marketing automation company. I thought, this is it. This is when they're going to become a B2B YouTube or a B2B streaming platform. And I think the opportunity is there for them to become a content platform, and they haven't done it. So they may yet fail me again, but I think this could be, I've always said, I know I give Clubhouse a lot of crap, but social audio is a feature. It's not an application. And so as a feature to what you can do on LinkedIn, I think this is brilliant.
I would not be surprised if LinkedIn bought Twitter. Microsoft bought Twitter. Twitter, by the way, is on the block.
Oh, for sure, they're on the block. Yeah, absolutely.
So who's going to buy
them?
Microsoft would make as much sense as anything else.
I think it's going to. Honestly, I think I predicted this in our prediction show. I can't remember. I'd have to go back and look at my notes, but I believe I said, if anybody, it would be one of the fintech companies, and maybe it would even be Square. Jack Dorsey would basically eat his own breakfast. I could see one of the fintech companies turning Twitter into a transactional PayPal-like platform, where identity is important. And by the way, the new CEO there, that's they've got to figure that out, right? They've got to figure out how to get the nonsense off of Twitter and turn it into something useful. So turning it into a transactional platform and social network would be really interesting. Have you seen some of the people who put in the tip thing, where you can tip Twitter?
I've heard about it. No, I have not. I've seen it, but I haven't done anything with it. I've just seen it.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I don't know. I don't know if Twitter, for breaking news and getting the people that you follow, their immediate thoughts. There's nothing better on the planet than Twitter. We all know this.
Agreed.
They don't have to be. They don't have to be more than that. They really don't. In my opinion,
I agree. I think they have to build up the quality, right? Because right now it is such a distrusted platform. And with exceptions, right? Because there are people who have shaped their feed and shaped their following to really, like me. I really like Twitter. My following and those that I follow are, I get a lot of value out of it.
But that's what I don't. You talk about distrusted. Facebook same way. Twitter's.
I don't disagree with that.
It's not the platform; it's the people you follow. So
agreed.
Once you
LinkedIn
have
is different
people,
even from that, right? Because LinkedIn has identity built into it.
That is true. That is true. And I think that's what you're seeing that added to Twitter as people are adding their own profile pics and they're getting their blue check marks and whatever the case is.
Yep.
It's happening.
Yep.
It's just at a snail's pace. So
right.
We will see. I think a Twitter acquisition happens by September.
Agreed. Agreed. It's just not going to be Microsoft, I don't think.
I don't know. They got more money than God.
They do have a lot of that. That is true.
They do literally. Here's the thing too.
They have a lot of cash.
You can make. You don't have to make a perfect acquisition right now because the cat. We talked about this a million times. The cash sitting in their coffers is doing nothing but losing them money because of inflation. Yeah. They need to put it to work. And
the stock price is at where it's a huge discount right now.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. It's half. It's half price. The same thing. Yeah. You and I listened to the Prof G Scott Galloway podcast. He thinks that Peloton will be purchased simply because it's 25% of the value of what it was.
Exactly.
It's on sale. So seeing a lot of that go on. So there you go.
Yeah. Oh yeah. This year's going to be filled with acquisitions like that for sure. All right. Last set of stories here before we get to our rants and raves here. And this one, there's some. There's some comedy built into this here. content creators doing some interesting things as we get into the beginning of 2022. The first one will, again, pair two stories together with this discussion because it really needs it. My wife would love this story. She loves a good poop joke. She really does. She really, really does. So this headline here is a reality star who says she made $200,000 from selling her farts. Really, I really just said that, in mason jars, is pivoting to selling them as NFTs. Stephanie Motto, the model in question here, is made headlines around the world over the holidays when she announced that she'd have to retire from selling her farts in jars after she was hospitalized while trying to keep up with the skyrocketing demand. That is not an Onion headline. That is an actual thing that happened. The former star of TLC's 90 Day Fiancé said she made around $200,000 from selling her bottled farts to her fans, but doctors advised her that excessive wind breaking was taking a toll on her body. My inner 14-year-old is coming out, and that is just funny. That is good comedy right there. Then we're going to spare that with another launch coming from content creators and sort of social media superstars and musicians. Logan Paul partners with former foe KSI to launch beverage company Prime Hydration. This article, which many of the sort of more niche publications in this space are covering, says Logan Paul continues to make his mark in the sporting world as he joins forces with former foe and fellow YouTuber KSI to launch a new sports drink, Prime Hydration. During a live stream on Instagram, the two popular YouTubers announced their latest collaborative ventures, Prime Hydration, with the duo to aim and rival some of the biggest companies on earth, Pepsi, Coke, Gatorade, Powerade, etc. What say you about these?
Well,
two?
let's talk about the Logan Paul thing first.
Okay, sure. Okay. I have a comment about the other one, but this is
just it's important to talk about this. As silly as some of the things that the Pauls get themselves into, is the fact that you're seeing more content creators, influencers out there selling products and services. And this is very akin to Mr. Beast starting his burger chain and making a success out of that. You're going to see more and more of this. And I like the idea where we're seeing media companies, and I mean, the Pauls have a media company, they're an influencer, being able to not just make money off of like media type money, like sponsorships and influencer deals and those types of things. They're actually able to make money off of products. So I like this. And of course you could think it's all funny and hilarious. And, you know, the two stars that are creating this thing or, you know, beat the crap out of each other in two fights, but whatever. Good for them. They could have a third fight, and then they could take some of their power drink that they're creating and make more money from it.
Well, that's the recipe, isn't it? That's the recipe, right? You sort of you find someone. You know, this is what struck me about this whole thing was you find someone that you can, you know, you become the villain or the hero, right? By getting into a big public fight with somebody. And they actually really did fight, or maybe they really fought.
Maybe, yes.
And yeah, here we go with the conspiracy theory part of this, right? Which is this could have all been very, very well orchestrated, right? The whole, you know, lead up to, and, you know, and the trash talking and basically taking advantage of each other's fan base, getting into the ring, having a quote unquote fight. And then maybe coming back and saying, you know, literally, and I'm quoting here, we're humbled by the process of creating a real brand, you know? So the two of them working together side by side, you know, I mean, I'm hearing, you know, Paul McCartney and Michael Jackson, you know, Ebony and Ivory coming together, right? You know, in a big kumbaya moment where they're all now launching this powered sports drink to the world, and it's all going to be unicorns and rainbows and all of that kind of thing. And so brilliant marketing, if it's true, and just brilliant, you know, I think a really interesting way of looking at productization, you know, media, you know, people productizing their audiences.
Absolutely right. Yeah, I think that the whole thing is brilliant. It actually, from what you just said, like, who's the villain, who's not? It reminded me of the movie Chef with Jon Favreau, where you had at the end you had the food critic reviewer came together with the chef that fought through the whole thing, and they created a successful restaurant from it. And remember, he said, "Lines out the doors. It could be a great story." This is a great story.
Yeah.
They took this story and they're monetizing it. So good for them. I have no idea what to make from.
I'm going to say this. I'm going to say this about the woman who farts into jars. First of all, I went and did some of the math and looked at the actual NFTs that she's making. Clearly, she's partnered with somebody who can help her do this.
And the artwork, and all that.
The artwork is totally meh.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. Again, a huge missed opportunity to make these things into something like a never-ending ticket or those kinds of things to extend her. I'm just going to say, I was going to say brand, but then of course Austin Powers liking the smell of my own brand. Anyway, there's so many things here that just make me giggle. But the missed opportunity here is that if you go look at the NFT, like the roadmap, right? The basically under the roadmap of the NFTs is basically says there isn't one. Go look and see what you get. What you get is if you buy one of these things for, I think it's about $180 or $175 right now with the price of Ether. You're seeing that you basically get the artwork, and then you get some time with her. To learn about her amazing things, and that's kind of it.
Yeah, it's access.
And so basically, once that's spent, it's done. So, if you do the math, if she sells all 5,000 of them, I think she was going to do for $180. You can do the math there and see that, it's about the same level of revenue. Now, you go, okay, if she makes $200,000 by actually doing the farts in jars, and then another $200,000 from selling NFTs, almost $500,000 from this idea. That's pretty darn good, actually, in the scheme of things. As an idea of an ongoing business, it's kind of silly.
That's the thing, and there's nothing wrong with the cash grab. I mean, for creators, you want to try it, but the thing is, you get one shot at it, and once you do it, you're done. Wouldn't it be better? If whatever the premise would have been and whatever the mission and the roadmap would have been, for this to be some kind of a long-term fan engagement.
Exactly.
Like, I'll give you a really good example. We've talked about it on the show. If you look at Crypto Dads, they have a great roadmap of how once you have one of their NFTs, you get access to a lot of real-life events, online tournaments. There you have a ton of merchandise opportunities. You get discounts. They're going to have a big event later. So you get access to a lot of things. It doesn't end. This is not a thing where, you get it, and then by the end of 2022, we don't know what we're doing. No, there's an ongoing roadmap. Right. And so if you're a creator and you're doing an NFT program, you really need to know there is a long-term plan. People want to know, how is this value going to increase, because they own it. So you don't just want.
That's right.
If it's just for a stupid picture and we're going to make fun about this, fine. You can spend $100 on it, but come on, we can do better.
Right.
So
that's it. And that's to me is the, and I promise this will be the last thing we do on this, but basically, I think why these two stories pair so well together. Oh my God.
I can't believe you just said that.
I know. I can't even. Anyway, why they pair so well together is because in one case, you're talking about a long-term strategy to use an audience and monetize an audience over time and build in a product strategy, right? Now, we'll see if they can execute against that. Those two guys can execute against that. But you can see the strategy, right? You can see a business strategy here. With this, the Stephanie motto is basically, it looks like a cash grab. It feels like a cash grab. And the valuation that I've seen, by the way, her initial price of $184 or whatever it was, 0.05 ETH, was actually down. If I went on OpenSea and look at the ones that are for sale right now, they're actually getting offers for less than that. So she's actually created already a discount by not putting any effort into a long-term strategy for doing this. and just even, because now she can't do this again. That's the thing. Once you do this the first time and it's a cash grab, you're kind of done at that point. You can't now go, oh, now I want to do something that's a never-ending ticket and do.
Well, she could create a road. I mean, that would be the thing. You create a roadmap for it. There have been some NFT programs that have come back from the dead because they said, "Oh, this is what it means.
Yeah, that's a
this is what it is now."
That's a good point.
So
that's a good
it's
point.
possible. So let's hope that that's the case. But I mean, you're working with pictures of fart jars. I mean, how far can we go?
Yeah.
So
you could go.
Yeah.
So many jokes.
Yeah.
So many jokes.
fun.
All right. Folks, we'll end it there with talk about our rants and raves, where Joe and I go off in a little bit of a rant or a little bit of a rave over something that makes us feel like we farted in a jar, or something that makes us feel like we can't because we have some medical condition that I just have to stop. Yeah. Just stop. Yeah. Just stop. Anyway, you want to go first,
I've
or
just
shall
got
I go first?
two comments. The one is, again, it's so funny. My wife and I watched 60 Minutes. We haven't watched 60 Minutes in years. Maybe it's just because we're getting old. But it was on after the football game last week, so we watched 60 Minutes. It was on. They did have a really good piece on the Great Resignation. I'll put it in the show notes. But if you go to 60 Minutes, it's free. The whole video's there in the transcript. The interesting piece of statistics that I really liked was Karen Kimbrough, which is LinkedIn's chief economist, which I didn't even know LinkedIn had a chief economist, but she said that before the pandemic, 1 in 67 jobs in the U.S. were remote. And today it's 1 in 7.
Wow.
So that's fascinating, right? That may not change for a while. So it's interesting to see how much our society has changed because of this. And the other thing I just wanted to mention, because I think we're going to be talking about it on this show quite a bit, but I know I sent this over to you, and I think everybody needs to know about this. But last week, former Super Bowl quarterback Charlie Batch went out on Twitter and offered Oklahoma quarterback Caleb Williams $1 million to transfer to Eastern Michigan from Oklahoma. And basically, the way this works is Batch works with a company called Game Above Capital, and they would be the sponsoring company of Caleb Williams. And the reason why this is possible, and we've talked about it on this show, the NIL rules that the NCAA passed, and name, image, likeness rules, that basically says the college athletes are now allowed to sell their name or image to companies. And I really think that 2022, Robert, is going to be nuts, crazy, Johnny Be Good, the movie times 1,000. Coming our way.
That's awesome.
So it was one tweet to one quarterback for $1 million. And
wow,
I can't imagine how nuts this is going to get. It really is. You remember the movie Johnny Be Good, right?
Yeah. Of course. Yeah, absolutely.
Where basically it was all this bribery and stuff, and they wanted to get to go to all the different colleges, but you had to do it. They were trying to hide it. But this is out in public.
Oh, yeah.
Which is crazy. Bribery, legal bribery.
It's going to get nuts. It's going to get nuts. And, I'm especially conscious of it because of, especially here in Southern California, the new coach here at USC. And, you've got people transferring over to USC, and it's just going to get crazy here in Hollywood.
And I guess this is, I've got, college age kids, and any activity.
Oh, they're gonna get this too.
Any
right?
activities.
They're gonna get this.
Esports is probably a big thing. You've got a lot of different things going on right now that can affect a lot of different people, and I don't think we've understood the magnitude of this rule change. This is huge.
Yeah.
So there you go. What do you got?
Yeah, I got this. So over the holidays, one of the friend and family of the show for sure, Jake Sanders. Hey, Jake, out there, tweeted at me and basically asked and sent me a link to an article that I had read, several times, but he reminded me of it, and basically, he asked in the tweet if I would talk a little bit about it. But then after reading it, I'm like, oh my God, it's such a great, wonderful piece of a history for us, and is so appropriate right now. we've talked a little bit on the show. So first of all, thank you, Jake, for sending this over via Twitter. It was just like chef's kiss, sort of perfect timing for my thinking and all of that. So I appreciate that. But then the article is from Harvard Business Review, and it's from 1996. And you and I have talked on the show about how we feel so overwhelmed right now, and how, we feel like it's the beginning of the web. And I was on a podcast the other day, and I was telling the host of the podcast, that's like, in 2008, 2009, at the beginning of social media, we were really kind of freaked out about, so many things about the economy, and things were, so all of that stuff sort of really put a muffler, if you will, on the sort of excitement and overwhelm we all felt about social media. It was sort of like, we just got to survive, right? But in 1996, this new web thing, this to me is more applicable, I guess is the right word, in terms of how I felt, in terms of being overwhelmed and excited, and the opportunities of Web 3 and how it relates to how we felt in the beginning of Web 1. And this article that Jake had sent over is called The Future of Interactive Marketing, which seems a little weird these days, but it was basically talking about what the internet was going to bring to marketing. And it's basically a roundup post, if you will, from Martin Sorrell, Eric Salama, Reed Hunt, many of these, George Day, many of these people who, quite frankly, were really big then, and maybe not so much today, but certainly the whole article is basically their takes, and these are heads of, huge agencies, huge brands at the time, talking about how the web was going to change marketing. And quite literally, you can go through this article, and if you did a search and replace of web to Web 3.0 or internet to Web 3.0 and all of those kinds of things, it reads like, wow, it's exactly the same, exactly the same place, right? So Martin Levin, right, who at the time was head of advertising, they called it then sponsored programming at Microsoft. And remember the Microsoft network?
Oh, yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Back in the day. Basically, his advice, coming from this article, accept the fact that you will have a website. Every company will, from the local dry cleaner to the largest bank in the nation, but don't assume that this website is going to be one of your key marketing venues. So what kind of website am I talking about when I say that every company will have one? A website that will have content and replace your customer service 1-800 service line and greatly expand on the kind of information now commonly provided there. In other words, a website built to handle interactive communication initiated by the consumer. If you sort of just change that around to Web 3.0 and content created by the consumer and content that the consumer can own, it's like there are such great learnings here and helping us understand the patterns of what Web 3.0 might go through from just understanding where people's heads were at in 1996, some of the thought leaders out there and where their heads were at in 1996. Some of it is vastly wrong, and you can go, aha, that's where they were really wrong thinking. Some of it is right on the money, and just overall just an incredibly useful review of where we were historically to give us a sense of perspective of where we are today and how early we really are. So I just love this, and I thought it was a great learning lesson.
You have to know where you've been to know where you're going.
Yep,
absolutely. We don't do that enough about looking at the history of this. So very good.
Yeah,
perfect.
Well, what do you got? So here we are, new year. It's what do you got?
What do I get?
What the hell's going on in your world? You're planning for a big event. Now you're in event business again.
I'm in the event business again. Yeah. So, and by the way, anybody, early bird ends next week. So
anybody
wants to go.
Bueller.
Yeah, we're limiting it to only 500 people. So it'll be at the Arizona Grand Resort in Phoenix, May 2nd to 4th, Creator Economy Expo. We'd love CEX.events. We'd love to see everyone there. And I'm working on that. We just, it's so funny. We just landed HubSpot as our big sponsor for it. So it's sort of a coming together because that HubSpot and I weren't always on the greatest terms
frenemies,
back in the day. And now we've come together and joined. It's
Yeah.
so
well, they were
wonderful.
trying to make fetch happen, and you were basically saying fetch is not going to happen. So stop trying to make fetch happen.
I think they won that battle though overall with the whatever it is, $30 billion
from the valuation,
the $30 billion valuation
perspective
or whatever. I think they won.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to let
they're
them
doing
win.
fine.
So yeah,
they're doing just.
I'm working
fine.
on selling sponsorships, all that kind of good stuff, and probably working more than I want to. But I was in Florida last week, and we had a great time with the family. Doing
lovely. Lovely.
Before we're back in the 15-degree weather in Cleveland, Ohio. So, what's your weather like in Los Angeles?
Well, the lovely weather here is 72 degrees and beautiful and sunny, and it's the time of year that I love here in Southern California, and so we're enjoying that. I'm busy with client work, which is love that. It's been a beautiful way to start the year, to be busy with some good client work and some new things that I'm working on, new content, new ideas, which I'll be ready to share here not too long from now. And my Cowboys are in the playoffs, so
very happy for
by
you.
the time,
I'll be rooting for them.
Thank you very much. By the time we meet again next week, I'll either be really happy that we're going to continue playing, or I'll be really sad that they were 1 and out. So that's my docket for the weekend, basically.
Well, I'll tell you what, when the Cowboys are on all cylinders, they can beat any team in football right now.
I agree.
Let's hope they are.
That's the question. Yeah. That's that they light all those cylinders. That's always the question.
Yeah. Well, my Browns, we lost all our cylinders this year, so what are you gonna do?
Cylinderless.
Yes. You got it. So,
yeah.
good.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Well, that means we're off. We are going to just encourage you as much as possible. Give us some new reviews for the new year. We'd love those, of course. Subscribe, tell your friends to subscribe, all that stuff. And of course, the podcast show notes or any of our other 305 episodes, you can get that at thisoldmarketing.site. Go to our lovely little website for that. And remember, questions. We want your questions. We want your story ideas. Hashtag us up at thisoldmarketing on the Twitter. And until we meet again, well, we'll see you next week. And remember, it's your story to tell. Tell it well. We'll see you soon on This Old Marketing.